Hi guys, welcome to Algebra Online, and today we are going to learn about domain and range, one of my favorite concepts in mathematics. So let's get started. The learning target for today, which I really hope that you're writing down in your notes, that's what we do in class, is that when students first come in, they look at the learning target and they write it down. That way they know what they're learning for the day. And so our learning target is I can recognize domain and range from a function, from a graph, from a graph or a table. So we're going to look at graphs today, we're going to look at tables today, and you're going to be able to tell the domain and range of a function. Okay, so let's start off though first with our opener. And I know our agenda says that we have quiz results and you should look online because they're there. Okay, sorry. All right, and so if we're going to find f of -3, we're going to plug in -3 here, not here. This is a fancy way to say y equals. This is also y equals. This is where the f of x is. It is basically saying that this here in our function needs to be plugged in here. So let's do that. So we're going to do negative absolute value, and that is going to be -3 minus 7 plus a 3. Now inside of the absolute value is a -3 and a -7. That's going to give us a -10. And remember, it still has those absolute value bars. Absolute value is the distance from 0 on a number line. So basically it's asking you how far away is -10 on the number line. And you would say, well, it's 10. So the negative right here is going to stay out in front. And then I'm going to perform this and make it -10. But I also want to take the absolute value of -10. And so I'm going to make it a +10 now. And then plus 3. Final answer is -7. Okay, so hopefully also by the end of the lesson today for our success criteria, right? It's going to help you if you can explain the difference between domain and range. If you can do that, that's going to help you get to your learning target successfully. So that's the important part about lessons, is you really want to take away from today about domain, range, and recognizing them from a graph or a table. But to get that, to be successful, we want to look at how you can explain the difference between the two. Okay, so also I'd like to note that I have a slide for you online, so that way you can print these off if you'd like to, or if you're able to, and so that way you can kind of follow along on like a note sheet, since these graphs are probably really difficult to write down. Okay, so our first question here is when x is -4, then what would y be? So we want to look on our x-axis and we're going to look for -4, and we're going to see where our function is at. Ooh, and it's not like at a perfect spot. It looks like it's in between 1, 2, 3. It looks like it's in between -3 and -4. So just for today right now, we're going to say that it's going to be between -3 and -4. Okay, let's take a look at the next example. When x is 1, what is our y equal? So x-axis, find +1, right? 0, 0, 1. And then looks like we have two options, right? So for 1, we could say that our y value is 2, and our y value is 1, 2, 3, -3. So we're going to say 2 and -3. All right, making sense? Maybe. I know I always ask you guys questions. I know you can't answer me, but okay. So when x is 4, so x is a +4, what is our y? It looks like we have two possible solutions, and they're also not in a really nice spot. So it looks like it's going to be between 3 and 4, and between -2 and -3. So let's write that out. Between a +3 and 4, and also would we say 1, 2, -2 and -3. So is this a function? I know we've been studying functions that for every input we have to have one output. And so if we take a look, if you push like button number 4, right, then you have two different values. So it's like a 50-50 chance. You don't know which one's going to come out. And so that makes this not a function. Not a function. I know also we can talk about the vertical line test. If you draw a straight line, oops, pretend that's straight. If you draw a straight line, and if in that straight line, look at this one, we have 3 different outputs for the input of x of 2. And so if it hits more than once, then it's not a function. And that has to be in all parts, because like right here, you could draw a line and it only hits once, but it has to be in every part of the graph. Okay, so let's try that a little bit different. Let's take a look at our function machine, and let's start plugging in some values. It first asks us to find x of -3. So guys, we're going to take this -3, plug it into the machine, put it right here, right? We're ignoring this. Basically, this is f of x, and it's telling you to take this -3 and plug it in here. So now we're going to have 6 over -3 minus 3 once we plug that in, which we can simplify to 6 over -6, and so it would be -1. Cool. All right, let's do it again for the 0. So it'd be 6 over 0 minus 3, which would be 6 over -3, which would give us a -2. And f of +2, so it'd be 6 over 2 minus 3, which would be 6, 6? It's an ugly 6, sorry. 6 over -1, which is a -6. So basically, if we were to graph this function, right? If we were to graph the function on our x-axis, if we go to the +2, then we know that it's gonna, right there at -6, it's gonna be part of our graph is going to hit the y at -6. Okay, so let's find f of 3. So I have 6 over 3 minus 3, which is 6 over 0, which we cannot divide by 0. Don't tell me it's 0, because it's not. It's not possible. We can't do it. So note, not possible. Can't happen. Nope. Okay. So now let's talk about domain and range. First of all, we know this is a function, right? For every input, for every x value, we only have one output. So we're going to say yes, that this is a function. Now, domain is a really fancy word to say what are all the values of x in our graph. And so we'll look at our x's, and I always remember that x goes with the domain because x comes before y and d comes before r. And so I'm like, okay, domain, everything in my x's, my graph stops at 4 and it stops at -2. Now there are a lot of different ways that you can write the domain, a lot of different notation. Today we're going to write it like this, so watch. So for domain, I know that it doesn't get any smaller, right, than -2, and that's where we start. Then I know that the domain, all the values of x go all the way to a +4, and it stops. Now it stops, I do a nice firm bracket. If it is an open circle, then we would do a parenthesis, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so now the range is all of the values of y for our graph. So like, take a look at the y's. What's the highest point our graph goes? And it looks like it's a +3. And the lowest point that it goes is a -1. Doesn't go anywhere else. Definitely touches -1, definitely touches 3. So we would say that the range, all the values of y that are possible for this function, is going to be between smallest value, which is -1, all the way up to a +3. Cool, not so bad, right? We're going to be spending days on domain and range, so get comfortable with it, as we're going to be doing this basically all week. Well, you know, a couple days, and then we got test review. Okay, so now these are some graphs for us to try. We want to take a look at the domain and range. And so what I would like you to do is I'd like you to set it up. So I'm going to say like x and y, domain and range. I feel like once you get into that habit, you're not like, which one was that? Was that domain? Was that range? Was that X? Was that Y? And so it's just kind of always just good practice. X and Y is domain and range. And I feel like I'm not going to have a lot of space for these, so I have to be more particular. So X is domain, the Y is the range. I'll have to write below that one. All right, now I got like the first row. Let's go ahead and practice some. Let's see, change my color. So if I want domain, I want all of the values for the x's for this function, which is a circle. So that means it's everything at 3 all the way to -3. So I'm going to write it with the hard brackets, and I'm going to say it is -3 to +3. For the range, it looks like it's doing the same thing. It looks like it is from -3 to 3, so that range is going to be -3 to a +3, and we're done. Okay, so let's take a look at B. B is a little bit different because it has arrows. Arrows means it's going to continue on. Continue on, continue. It's not going to stop like the first example on this slide. They're definitely stopping, not continuing. But this graph actually continues in each direction entirely. So that means it's going in the X direction forever and the Y direction forever. So how we do that is because it never stops, right? It doesn't have a stopping point. We're not going to use those hard brackets. We're going to use the parentheses, and we're going to say it's going to go from -infinity to +infinity. For the domain, because it's going to continue on. Also for the range, it's going to continue to go up and down, and so the range is also from -infinity to +infinity. Now, if we know that our graph is going to stop at a particular place, like the next example, that's when we're going to use our hard brackets. So let's do it. Okay, so domain is all the possible x values. So it looks like -1, -2. It looks like it's from -2 to 4. And the range is, lowest value is -4 to a +2, hard bracket. So I think it'd be a really great idea for you to stop this video right now and try the 3 down below. Try these ones, see how you do, and then push play when you're ready. All right, guys, I'm ready if you're ready. You ready? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my domain and ranges. Hopefully that you did that. Domain, range, x and y equals. And for the first one, the domain are all of the values of x. Now this is a parabola, right? It's an x squared, it's a -x squared because it's going down, and these arrows indicate that it is going to go on forever. And as it goes down forever, it's going to get wider and wider and wider and wider and wider. And that's why it's all the numbers. It's going to continue on forever. We don't know when it's going to stop. It's not going to stop. So therefore, we're going to use a parenthesis, -infinity, +infinity. And then for the range is different. The range does go in the negative direction forever, but it comes up and stops. It's not going to go any higher than a +4. So that means we would say that it's going to go in the negative direction forever, but it's also going to go to 4 and it's going to stop. All right, next example, domain, range, x, y. Let's see. For this example, the domain is all the values from, what is that, 2 to 4? And it's a hard 2 to 4, right? So we're going to do +2 to 4. And then for the range, it looks like it is the lowest value would be -3. And the highest value would be a +2. Great. Okay, last one for today. Last example is the domain for letter F. And I'm kind of running out of room, so I'm going to do domain, which is the X. What is our domain equal? Domain are all the possible values. We have a stopper. The stopper is right here. It starts here and like continues on. And that should look familiar, kind of like a square root function. Remember, we've been looking at those. All right, so anyways, so I'm going to say it's going to start at 0. So I'm going to start at 0, and it's going to continue on in the positive infinity forever. Doesn't stop. And then for our y values, for the range, looks like it starts at a positive 4, right? It starts at a positive 4, and it will continue reaching and getting higher and higher and higher, and you don't know when it's going to stop. It's not going to stop, and that's why we have a parenthesis there at the end. All right, so that's it. That's today's lesson, guys. I hope that you enjoyed learning about domain and range. We're going to practice some more tomorrow. We're going to practice more because it's also going to be on the test. We're going to practice it all week. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.